Hey, welcome to RM Wraps. My name is Randy Miller, and what you've seen right here is a cabinet that I designed and made. And also, this is actually a wrap. This is actually a Di-Noc Architectural Film wrap. And this video is about how I accomplished all this right here. I'm going to give you all the details, the tips and tricks, and all the other stuff that makes it a little easier for you guys to install something like this. And so one little techniques I'm going to show you is a sanding part around the edges so it's nice and clean instead of using your knife. That's one little technique. Another technique is getting in these little cubby holes, putting in one sheet from here to here, putting in one sheet and making it a lot easier to install these little areas, but also showing how wrap one piece here to here, one piece here to here, and of course this piece right here. So stay tuned if you want to learn how to wrap this stuff with the Di-Noc Architectural Films or any kind of architectural films. This is the video to watch. So when we're talking about the architectural films, I just want to tell you that I was a professional painter for about 15 years, and I did a lot of things. And most of the paints out there that you paint a subject with, they don't have hardeners in the paint. So for a prime example, if you have a pantry and they have shelves like these on the pantries and it's been painted, and during time, sometimes things stick to it, but also you see a lot of scratch marks and it leaves scuff marks and all kinds of stuff. And if you use architectural films, it grants a little bit more, but in the long term and the durability and the cleanup and just a lot of more benefits is used with the architectural films. Let me show you a prime example of what I'm talking about. I'm going to show you my entertainment center. I like to make stuff out of wood. Let me show you real quick. I like record players too, records. So this is actually really good quality paint, and so I listen to my records all the time. You can see all the scratch marks going in and out, in and out, in and out. And I oil prime this guy, and then I use a high quality paint. But still, even with the dust, it still collects dust. But it's sometimes if I don't wipe it down enough, like every other week, and I wipe it down, and then it gets hard, or a little harder to get off with the dust, but also the scrape marks. So that's the reason, one of the reasons why I like our architectural films, because granted, this won't happen if you use architectural films, and also it's easier to clean, and it won't leave scuff marks when you're doing that kind of stuff. All right, let's go back inside. So I'm going to kind of walk you through how I do this. So this is actually MDF boards right here, so it's really strong. I like to make my stuff that lasts long. I mean, granted, it's heavy. This is actually, I made this for my daughter. It's going to be at the end of the bed, so her bed's going to be this way right here, and the TV is going to be right here, facing the TV, that. But I want to wrap with the Di-Noc solid colors right here. But I'm going to wrap it so it's going to last a long time. I'm going to wrap the inside right here. I'm going to wrap the back side right here. And so this will last her for years. And granted, it's heavy, but it will last a long time. And another thing is, if it gets scraped, or it gets bumped, or it gets damaged on one side, she can actually, or I can do it, is remove the strip right here and put another strip on. And it'd be that quick. And it won't, you can match everything. And so that's another reason why I like using architectural films. Things get damaged, things get wiped out, or things get whatever. Just rip it off, put a new one up, and it only takes probably about 15 minutes to patch this part up here, or patch this part up here. So it's a lot easier to fix things in the future, but also it lasts a lot longer to do this. All right, prepping it out. So once I get everything all cut perfectly, exactly where I want it to be, this has to be level 5, wherever you're working on. So I build everything, and then I use what I use a little spackle at first to spackle the little holes up right here. It's more detailed stuff. And then and I sand it down. Then I actually use putty, the Bondo putty. And then I do it one more time, sand it down. And then at the end of getting all perfectly leveled and everything, nice and smooth, I use adhesion guards. And also I use this kind of nap on here. So I dip the Zenzer guard on here and I roll it on there, and you can see it soaking up. So what the Zenzer guards is basically, it's like a rubber. So when it gets on there, it's rubbery, it feels rubbery. So once I do put 2 coats on, especially around these edges right here, and all the way around, I put 2 coats on there. Then I use the sander, the 220 grit, to get it even smoother. So I got to get it nice and smooth. And after I get everything all sanded down, and then I use invisible glass cleaner and a lint-free rag. And I clean every little corner. So the prepping out is the most important thing to get the vinyl to stick good or great and make everything look diamonds before it's all wrapped, or before it's wrapped and everything. So that is the steps I take. So right before I install this product, I use the Primer 94 and this guy right here. And then I just do around the edges. So here, so if I'm doing this part right here, what I would do, I would wrap here, one piece, wrap here, and all the way to here. And so what I would do, I would primer here, here, and then underneath here, and then all the way around, wherever the edges are going to be at. That's the prime example of how I would tackle this guy right here. So stay tuned. I'm going to put the camera right over there, and I could probably do a time-lapse video of how I would tackle this little project right here. But if you want to see more products on like the architectural films, we got more right here. These are just little leftover scraps of this, you know, in here. And I'm going to be testing these guys out pretty soon. These are actually the dry wood Di-Nocs, and I requested that to test out, so stay tuned on that one. But go to the rmwrapsstore.com. You can see all the prices, the availability, and see what's available, or what you can actually wrap with this Di-Noc or architectural films. So the first thing I do is I measure everything, and I always add an inch bleed on the left, right, and top and bottom. So 2-inch bleeds to make it safer. So the next thing I do is I grab a bodyguard knife, and what it does, it cuts between the vinyl and the paper. And I have a 2-inch gap. What you see right there is 2 inches from the edge to where I'm cutting at right there. And both all the way around. And this is where it helps me a lot. It helps a lot of people out but there's people that don't know this trick. So what I do is I fold it, and it relaxes, it makes it easier for the vinyl to go into around that subject. So I fold it all the way around, and then I remove the middle part before I install it. So it's just tacky in the middle part. Alright, here's a prime example I'm going to show on you how to, it makes it a lot easier when it's folded. The vinyl's folded like that. And also the middle part is off, so it's sticky. So what I'm trying to do is make an even up and down, but also on the back end, I'm putting it right up to the edge, so I know it's level on the back end. And when you see where my thumb is, I'm tacking it on where that tacking on strip is at. I want to make sure it's nice and level, or flush, I guess we call it. Okay, so now it's kind of tacked on. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to remove all the strips and vinyls, or the backing if you call it. There you go. And I'm just going to tack it on even more, making sure it's right on there. This is the architectural film squeegees that I use, and we also sell and make in-house. So right now I'm cutting the vinyl at a 45-degree angle, so it releases it, so when I go around the corners, it's easier to go around the corners, so you can see right there. So I do the edges first, another 45-degree angle, and I go all the way around and I tack it on, and I use architectural film squeegees. Next, I remove the backing on the other side. Just remove all of it. Make sure you get all the paper. Now I just kind of lay it on, and I go down the middle first, and then you work your way up. And then that little pointer right there at the end of the architectural film squeegee, it's great because it shoves it in there, especially in the corner part where you're seeing right there. And I just shove it in as far as I can. And I'm using the thickness of the squeegee. It's 1/8 inch thick. And right there, I'm actually cutting another 45-degree angle. And on both sides, right there, I try not to get as close. I try to go as close, but close enough around the edges. So when the other vinyl gets on top of that, you won't see any gaps. Here I'm showing you how the thickness of it. So I'm using the guide, the thickness of the squeegee, so it pulls the vinyl down, and then also leaves a 1/8 inch going on the other surface. So the reason why I designed this architectural film squeegee is that the corners have like a round corner to it, so you can take your knife and the thickness of it and also the roundness of it, it goes perfectly into the corner. You can't really see that inside, but I'm gonna make another video explaining the detail of that, and I'll show it in the other video. But when we heat it up and it sinks in, it goes better into the corner. Okay, so I want to show you what the architectural film squeegees can do, and how I cut the edges and everything. So you kind of saw how I overlapped a little bit, and I used the squeegee. And so if the arrow, going this way, you hold your finger this way and go this way. And then also it's a perfect gap right there. It's a 1/8 inch gap. And also, I think you see these corners right here. I always do about this angle right here. And then when I am installing the other vinyl, I'm gonna go over here and here. I'm going to have the vinyl overlap over here. Take my knife right this way, and then go cut this way right here. But anytime you go in this direction, make sure, well, either way direction, but I made it have it easier having this way, this angle right here, go this way, so it's easier to do this way instead of not going this way, if that makes sense. So yeah, you can get this at the rmwrapsstore.com or even the rmwraps.com website. It's called Architectural Films Squeegees, and we have lots of different other colors there, but this is one of the techniques that I do. And at the end, in every section I do, at the end of every section, I use a little bit of heat on the heat gun. You can see how I did that. And then once I heat it all up, and I just take my finger, or a lot of times I take the squeegee, but this is kind of tight areas. I take my finger and just kind of go like this and get all the air bubbles out. It's called post-heating, and that's it right there. So that's one section right there done, and then the other sections are done. Same thing. That's a little tight detail video that I can give you. Okay, before I install it, we're doing the bottom part of the shelf, and it's nice and clean. And I'm using primer 94 around the edges. Let's speed this up real quick. So I pre-cut the backing, and I did it at about I want to say about 4 inches, 4 or 5 inches. So it's just tacky in that one area, and I made it sure it's nice and straight. And when I'm laying it down, I make sure it's overlapped left and right, and I'm tacking it on just on the edge right there. And making sure it's nice and level on the bottom too. So I'm doing underneath the unit right now. I'm tacking it on. Okay, I'm going to speed this up a little bit more. So what I'm going to do is we're going to lay it on top. I'm going to cut a little bit excess off right there so it goes into the box nicely. So right now I'm kind of babying it, going all the way in to the edge of the spacer. So I'm kind of seeing where the spacer's at and trying to get right in the middle of it. I'm going to take a really brand new sharp knife. I'm going to cut right down the middle. I'm not pushing very hard. I'm just enough to score it. And so it's not going into the second layer of the film. As you can see, I'm kind of, there we go, pulling it right off. So I'm making it relax a little bit, making it go into the box. Now I'm using my squeegee as a guide, or also as a gap, a 1/8 inch gap around the right where the edges are at. I'm going to do the same thing on this side. So make sure it's nice and tight where the spacer's at. As you can see, the gap right there. Also, just I'm pushing enough pressure on there just to score the first layer of the vinyl. There we go. And I accidentally overcut it right there, but that's fine. I usually use my fingernail or the edge of the squeegee because it's a hard enough. It acts like a fingernail. So I'm kind of laying it all down. So there's, on the right and left hand side, there should be like a little bit of gap, overlap. See it right there. Making sure I'm squeezing kind of hard to get the air bubbles out. And it's like a little overlap on that side, but I'm still going to use a squeegee to be consistent of the 1/8 inch. Okay, here's where I'm going to be measuring again. So again, I like to go from the top and to the bottom. So it's about 9.5 inches that I want to cut the vinyl height, and also 25 inches width. So I'm going to go over my cutting table, and I already pre-cut this right here, but you can see it is at 25 inches by about 9.5 inches high. So that gives me 1 inch bleed all the way around. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the bodyguard knife, cut 2 inches all the way around. And then right down the middle, I call the tacking on strip. I'm going to do like a 1 inch tacking on strip right in the middle. Now I'm going to be folding it. Not a lot of people know about this, but you can actually fold the architectural films, and it's a lot easier to install little cubby holes like where I'm going to be showing you right here. You're not fighting with it, and also when you add a little heat to it, the crease disappears. So it really doesn't matter. Well, let's go over to in the cubby hole now. As you can see, I'm going to remove the tacking on strip right in the middle, and I'm just going to walk it in, making sure all that, there you go, making sure it's right in the middle, left, right, top, and bottom. So I have enough to go up there, yep, down there, left, right, perfect. So now what I do is I remove all the backing, so it's tacked on. Here we go. I like to have a trash can nearby so I don't have to pick up the trash twice. So that's one of my things I like to stay neat and clean. Okay. Now, take your squeegee, get down the middle, tack it on even more. Now you can start pressing hard and making sure it's all in there. Now with the architectural film squeegee, it does have a little pointer. So what I do is I shove the pointer in the corner. As you can see right there. I shove it right in there. So that's one of the tools I enjoy, or I'm glad I have, is that little pointer. My camera just loves not focusing. Sorry about that. Alright, there we go. Yeah, I'm shoving all the air bubbles out. And I'm using that pointer to shove the vinyl even closer. Making sure everything is nice, as close as possible. Those corners are always the challengingest parts, is getting right up to the corner of that. Okay, now I'm going to take my architectural film squeegee. The squeegee is 1/8 inch thick, and it slides really good. That's the reason why I made these corners rounded, so it slides and doesn't tear into the vinyl. Also, when you cut in the corners, it's a perfect, because when the vinyl relaxes and you add a little heat, it sinks in even more in the corners. So it's a great depth, the 1/8 inch thickness depth. Plus it looks evenly all the way around.
Losing time, I'm fading fast. I just wanna make it last. Try to let go of the past.
So anytime I get done with a subject or an area, I like to do is called post-heating. What it does, it activates the glue and relaxes the vinyl to go into the surface or the corners better. And also it takes away all those little creases right there. Half the time I use my fingers, and the other half I use the squeegee. So it all depends on what you want. But once you get the fill of the vinyl, it doesn't require a lot of heat in there. You can actually see when the vinyl relaxes.
You could have it, and I know of sadness, the anxious and panic, the infinite vastness of all that is blackness.
cut it for you. Overlapping each other. Now, once it's tacked on, I remove all the backing and just get everything all prepped out. Take your squeegee and just kind of work your way in. Go way down the bottom. And what I like to do is push hard on the edges right there. And you can't see it right here, but I use the pointer, if you call it, on the squeegee. Now I'm taking the squeegee, the thickness of it, and I'm going straight up. I'm pushing hard, but not hard enough. What I'm doing is I'm scoring the vinyl. I'm trying not to cut into the other vinyl, just enough to score the vinyl to release it. There we go. Now I'm doing a little slivers right there so it relaxes the vinyl a little bit more. And removing that back. Now I'm just pushing it in there just to get it creased. I'm going to use, usually use 220 sandpaper. This one I had was a 320 sandpaper. Both of them work. And also I'm using my squeegee. As you can see, I like to go around in circles. And then go back and forth just like that. And it should just come right off. This doesn't, when you use a knife, it doesn't cut into the wood. And that's the reason why I like it doing it that way. The last thing, again, in every section I do, it's called post heating. And I post heat everything. It relaxes the vinyl, activates the glue, and it sinks in the vinyl and around the corners and the edges. And now you know it's in there. Now we're going to be tackling the back part of it. And so I pre-cut the backing. It's called tacking on strip. It's a 1-inch strip. So it's just tacky that way. And usually when we tackle something that large, I cut it a certain direction. And this is where I cut it in. So once it's lined up and it's tacked on, you can, once it's tacked on, there it is. Make sure everything is overlapped. Remove the backing and then start squeegeeing it left to right. Sometimes it's just easier just removing the whole thing instead of fighting with the paper. So it's barely tacked on, as you can see. So I'm using the squeegee, going up and down. Okay, the next thing I'm going to be doing is I'm going to cut a 45-degree angle cut. Instead of using a knife, because anytime you use a knife, you can actually score the other vinyls or even the subject. And I'm using the squeegee and a 320 sandpaper, and then I'm using a circle. So when I circle it, it scores it better. But also the reason why I like using the architectural film squeegee, because it's completely flat and hard, and that's another tool that I highly recommend using. Or you can use actually a board. Okay, just to be cautious, and this is where I had a little oops. You can see right there. When you're using sandpaper, try to be as careful as possible, because sometimes you actually can scuff up the architectural films with your sandpaper. So there it is. So after once it's done, I like to do it one more time and get rid of all the little imperfections of the vinyl right there. And then I use a cloth, and then make sure it's all nice and smooth. Get rid of all the, I guess, dust or the leftover vinyls. And that's a perfect edge right now. Just doing that way. So the next thing I do is same thing. Do the circles, and then the one slice up, and then go that way. Now we're doing the sides, and so when the side is, I usually add about a 1/2 inch bleed, you see on here on the left side, and then about a 2-inch bleed on the right side, and that goes out to the front of the unit. And I'll show you real quickly how I did that. And here's again another 45-degree angle cut, just to relax the vinyl. And usually just take your time. And if you see my the angle of the squeegee, I have like a 45-degree angle, so it's a nice I guess cut. Or there you go. Again, just double check everything. I really like this technique on the sanding technique. A lot less risks of sanding versus cutting with the blade. Okay, we're gonna go around the front. And so what on this one right here, I use my thumb just to get around the edges. I can kind of feel the vinyl, how it works with the thumb. And before I install that, I use the primer 94 around these edges, just to let you know. Now I'm cutting where the shelves are at, just to relieve the vinyl. Now with the heat, it sinks in the vinyl a little bit, but also relaxes the vinyl. As you can see right there, you can see the fingering. There it goes. So I'm kind of sinking the vinyl a little bit more, so when I do the sanding, it's closer to the edge, if you call it. So I do that first, and then I let the vinyl, I guess, cool off. It only takes a moment for the vinyl to cool off. And then once it's cooled off, then I can actually start sanding right away. Now I'm cutting right there. It has like a little lip of overlap right there. Also on the edges where the shelf is at. And if I wanted to, I can have like it's called a double cut. And you can just cut right to the edge, and you won't see like a little lip. Again, I'm being cautious, so I'm just doing a quick little sand right there. There you go. Instead of taking my knife and possibly damaging the underneath vinyl. Thank you for watching this video. If you got any comments or questions, comment down below and tell me what you think about this video. And also, if you want to order any of the products, rmwrapsstore.com with the architectural films, or if you go to the rmwraps.com, that's where the custom designs and the mini fridges, refrigerators, door wraps, and other things, custom stuff is at. You can always get a hold of us, 208-696-1180, info@rmwraps.com. Randy or Devin will take care of you. And stay tuned. We got more projects and products coming your way.